picture this. You have just walked through your front door after an absolutely grueling, um, endlessly exhausting day.
Oh man, we have all been there.
Right. You are carrying heavy groceries. The straps are like digging into your shoulder. You are juggling your house keys. Your phone is buzzing in your pocket. And you are just desperate, down to your very bones, to sit on the couch for 5 minutes.
Just completely running on empty.
Exactly. So you take 3 steps into the hallway and boom, your foot catches. You trip over your partner's discarded shoes.
Or, maybe it's your roommate's massive gym bag.
Yes. Or your kid's crumpled up, inside-out socks. And for what feels like the 100th time this month, you are tripping over the exact same pile of laundry in the exact same spot.
And that is the exact moment the brain just sort of short-circuits.
It really does. Before your conscious brain even realizes what is happening, you snap. You just yell out, "You never pick up your socks."
Oh, the classic line.
And from the other room, they do not apologize. They immediately fire right back. "Well, you don't appreciate everything I do. All you see are socks on the floor."
It is such a universally frustrating scene. I mean, we have all been there, standing in that hallway, either as the person tripping over the socks or as the person getting yelled at from the other room.
Oh, 100%.
And within, 3 seconds? Your heart rate is skyrocketing, your nervous system is in full fight-or-flight mode, the entire evening is totally ruined.
Yeah, the night is basically over at that point.
And somehow you are in the middle of this massive relationship-threatening fight over a few ounces of cotton tubing.
Exactly. It just escalates from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
But today, we're going on a mission to figure out how to stop this exact scenario right in its tracks.
Yes, I'm so excited for this one.
Me too. We are doing a deep dive into some genuinely incredible insights from A Piece in Psychology Today by Pia Owens.
Which is such a great source.
It really is. Now, she is a lawyer and a negotiation coach, which, is a pretty perfect, if slightly unexpected, background for this topic.
It actually makes total sense when you think about it.
Right. We are going to uncover how to transform these exhausting, repetitive, and honestly kind of absurd arguments into actual relationship-building conversations.
And the place Owens starts, which I love, is by pointing out a really tragic but deeply fascinating irony about these blowout arguments.
Oh, the irony is the best part. Tell them about it.
So when you look closely at that exact moment, the explosive yelling about the socks, the immediate defensive shouting from the other room, neither person in that scenario actually woke up that day wanting to have a screaming match.
Right. Nobody penciled "scream about laundry" at 5:30 p.m. into their calendar. Like, they weren't plotting this.
Precisely. Both people were really just trying to communicate a sensitive, painful issue. I mean, the person who tripped in the hallway has probably been holding in their frustration about the house being messy for days, maybe even weeks.
They were trying to be the chill, accommodating partner.
Exactly. But it just finally boiled over when their physical energy was at its lowest. And, the person getting yelled at has probably been quietly feeling unappreciated for a while, too.
So they're both just carrying around this invisible baggage.
Yeah. They were both desperately trying to be heard, to have their internal reality validated by the person they love. But because of how that communication came out as an attack and then an immediate counterattack, they both ended up walking away feeling so much more isolated.
And misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's just a spectacular failure of communication, right? You have two people trying to connect, trying to be seen, and they are completely missing each other in the dark.
It's sad, really, when you reframe it like that.
It is. So if these arguments are really just failed attempts at communication, then the very first step to fixing them has to happen before a single word is even spoken out loud.
Yes. That is the crucial pivot point. Owens lays down her first rule for navigating this, and I have to warn you, it sounds deceptively simple.
Lay it on us.
Before you open your mouth to speak, you must decide what you are actually trying to achieve. You have to actively determine your desired outcome in that exact moment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, honestly, I am struggling to accept that in the heat of the moment.
I know, it's tough.
Like, that sounds like great advice when you're sitting calmly in a therapist's office. But when you have just tripped over a shoe and your groceries are spilling all over the floor, pausing to evaluate your strategic outcomes feels biologically impossible.
It is incredibly difficult when you are flooded with emotion, absolutely. But let's look at the literal facts of the scenario, okay?
Okay, I'm with you.
Your partner left their socks on the floor. They are probably generally aware the socks are there. If your genuine literal goal in that moment is simply to get those specific socks off the floor, Why would you initiate a character assassination about it?
Well, because it's annoying. Because they should know better.
I get that. But if your desired outcome is purely moving the fabric from point A to point B, you could achieve that by making a simple, non-judgmental request.
Like what?
You could just calmly say, "Hey, could you put your socks in the hamper?" You ask for the specific physical behavior you want, rather than launching into a sweeping historical judgment about their personality flaws.
Okay, fair. But I can practically hear you, the listener, yelling at your dashboard or your headphones right now, saying, but I don't just want the socks moved.
Right, right. It's never just the socks.
Exactly. What if you are genuinely boiling over with frustration? What if the socks are just the final straw and you feel this overwhelming physical need to express how incredibly irritated you are by this ongoing pattern?
The feeling of just needing to let it all out.
Yes. You cannot just politely ask someone to use a hamper when your blood is legitimately boiling. And doesn't psychology tell us that suppressing our emotions is toxic anyway?
Okay. There is a massive difference between suppressing an emotion and constructively regulating it. And that is exactly where Owens delivers some real tough love in this piece.
I love some good tough love. What does she say?
If you take that pause and you realize that your desired outcome isn't actually about the physical socks, but rather your goal is to loudly express your intense frustration, you have to ask yourself a very hard question.
Which is?
What is the purpose of expressing that frustration to them right in this exact second?
To make them realize they messed up. To make them feel the weight of what they did, honestly.
Exactly. If you pause and you are really honest with yourself, you realize your true underlying goal in that moment is to punish them.
Oof. That's hard to admit.
It is. You want to make your partner feel guilty because you feel bad. And here is the hard truth about venting directly at your partner when you are in a punitive state of mind.
Let's hear it.
Making them feel guilty will not actually ease your frustration. It won't solve the underlying issue of the chores. It will only trigger their brain's threat response.
So they just get defensive.
Instantly. It puts them instantly on the defensive, which leads directly to the exact screaming match we described at the beginning.
So what are you supposed to do with all that visceral anger then? Just swallow it?
No, not swallow it. You have to recognize that in that specific, highly charged moment, you are not equipped to have a healthy, constructive conversation. Your brain is in the wrong gear.
That makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes the absolute most constructive thing you can do for your relationship is to simply stay quiet for the time being.
Wow. Just bite your tongue.
Just for a bit. Recognize that your primary drive right now is just to vent and take that venom somewhere safe. Vent to a sympathetic friend, write it down on your phone, go for a run.
Process the initial rage.
Yes, so that when you do finally talk to your partner, your goal is actually communication, not retaliation.
That requires a staggering amount of self-awareness. But the mechanics of it make perfect sense.
It takes practice, for sure.
So if we can actually manage to pause and we get past the initial rage,
Yeah.
and we realize that our goal is to address a deeper frustration, that we actually do want to fix the root of the problem, how do we even figure out what that deeper frustration is?
Because in the moment, it really truly feels like the anger is 100% about the socks.
It really does.
Yeah.
Like, I am mad about the socks.
Well, this is where Owens offers a really brilliant thought experiment to help us bypass our own self-deception.
Okay, I love a good thought experiment.
I want you to imagine, just for a second, that your partner had a diagnosed medical condition.
Okay.
Imagine a physical limitation, like severe arthritis or a bad back, that literally prevented them from bending down and picking things up off the floor.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If that were the reality of your life and you walked through the door and saw their socks on the hallway floor, you wouldn't be furious with them, would you?
No, of course not. My brain wouldn't process it as an insult. I'd know they physically couldn't help it.
Exactly. You would just accept the socks on the floor as a neutral fact of life with your partner. Even if the clutter occasionally frustrated you, you would never dream of yelling at them about it.
Right, because assigning malicious intent to something they literally lack the capacity to do would be totally irrational.
What's fascinating here is what this thought experiment actually proves about our psychology. It proves that the fight is almost never about the socks themselves.
Wait, really? Never.
Think about it. If the anger were really just about the physical presence of cotton fabric resting on hardwood, you would be equally enraged regardless of why they were there.
Oh, wow. That is such a good point.
But you aren't. The anger comes entirely from what your brain decides the socks represent. It's about an underlying emotional need of yours that isn't being met.
So we are basically looking at a seismic tripwire. Like the
Mm,
sock is just a tiny, insignificant pebble on the ground.
right.
But because of the massive shifting tectonic plates of unsaid resentments underneath the surface of the relationship, stepping on that tiny pebble triggers a massive earthquake.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. Yelling at the pebble won't stop the earthquake. You have to look at the tectonic plates.
I love that analogy.
And Owens points out that these deeper emotional realities, the plates shifting under the surface, usually fall into a few distinct categories.
Let's explore those because I think this is where the theory gets incredibly practical for you listening right now. For instance, think about the fundamental way you exist in a space.
Yes.
You might be someone who deeply, biologically, needs order, and like visual clutter genuinely spikes your anxiety.
Yes. Owens categorizes this first reality as mismatched habits. The frustration isn't really you left your socks out, it's a much deeper panic.
What kind of panic?
It's you realizing, I am struggling to cope with the fact that we have fundamentally different thresholds for cleanliness, and my nervous system feels chaotic in my own home.
Oh, man. That is a huge, heavy realization to carry around. It's not about laundry at all. It's about the deep friction of cohabitation.
Exactly.
But what if the issue isn't that I'm a neat freak? What if I'm perfectly fine with a little bit of clutter, but I literally just spent 4 hours scrubbing the entire house top to bottom?
Then you are dealing with a completely different tectonic plate. Owens calls this one feeling invisible.
Feeling invisible. That sounds painful.
It is. In this scenario, the sock is purely symbolic. You have been putting in massive hours of invisible effort, cleaning, organizing, carrying the mental load of the household.
Doing all the behind-the-scenes work.
Right. So when your partner carelessly tosses a dirty sock onto a floor you just broke your back vacuuming, your brain interprets that careless action as a deliberate insult.
It feels like they are looking you dead in the eye and saying, your time, your energy, and your hard work mean absolutely nothing to me.
Even if they're just blindly taking off their shoes while thinking about a football game.
Exactly. To you, the action feels like blatant disrespect.
Precisely. The emotional need there isn't a cleaner house. It's a desperate desire for your efforts to be appreciated and made visible.
Okay, so that's two. Mismatched habits and feeling invisible. What's the third one?
There is a third reality Owens identifies, and this one might be the sneakiest, because it actually has nothing to do with your partner or the house at all.
Right, like, what if everything is fine at home, but you are completely overwhelmed outside of it? Say, work is incredibly demanding, or you're terrified about your finances, or dealing with a sick family member.
Owens calls this misdirected stress. You are carrying this massive, heavy ball of tension home with you. Your nervous system is operating at like 99% capacity.
You're just totally redlining.
Exactly.
Wow.
You are suffering from an extreme allostatic load. So when you walk in the door, your partner's minor, everyday habits like dropping a sock provide that final 1%.
It just pushes you right over the edge.
It pushes your system into overflow. The sock is just a convenient target for the overwhelming stress you feel about everything else in your life.
I think of it like the check engine light on your car's dashboard. Like yelling at the little blinking light won't fix the car.
Right, you have to pop the hood and look at the actual engine.
Yes. The engine is the emotional need.
Yeah.
So yelling, you never pick up your socks, is completely useless in all three of these scenarios.
Completely useless.
It doesn't negotiate the mismatched habits, it doesn't make you feel appreciated for your hard work, and it absolutely does not lower your external stress levels.
It accomplishes nothing except creating a brand new problem to deal with.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Let's say we've done the hard work. We paused in the hallway. We didn't yell. We identified the real emotional need to need. Maybe we realize we are just feeling completely invisible.
Okay.
How do we actually talk about that? Because my mind immediately goes to standard relationship advice. You know, you read any self-help book and they all tell you to use I statements.
Ah, yes, the famous I statements.
Right. Like you aren't supposed to say, you do this. You're supposed to say, I feel this. Doesn't that just solve the defensiveness problem?
You would certainly think so, given how often it's prescribed by everyone, but Owens issues a massive warning about I statements.
Wait, really? Why?
She points out how incredibly easy they are to misconstrue and, frankly, to weaponize.
Weaponized therapy speak. I know exactly what you mean.
She gives a stark, very realistic example from her practice. Imagine sitting down with your partner and saying, I hate it when you're a slob. I feel angry when you throw your socks on the floor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Technically speaking, those are perfectly constructed I statements. They literally start with the word I.
But it still feels like a physical punch in the gut. Like, I feel angry that you are a fundamentally terrible person.
Exactly.
You are just taking a harsh judgment and wrapping it in a nice little therapy bow.
Precisely. It is just blame and shame heavily disguised as healthy communication. And your partner's brain is not fooled by the pronoun.
No, definitely not.
Their amygdala still processes it as an attack on their character, and they will immediately defend themselves.
So if I statements are actually a trap, what is the true strategy here?
Yeah.
How do we express the need without triggering their defense mechanisms?
The actual goal is to shift the entire framework. You make the conversation about identifying your emotional needs, and crucially, you have to ask for help.
Wait, asking for help,
Yeah.
not demanding that they change their behavior.
Right. You have to completely shift your posture from criticizing your partner to actively leaning on them for support.
That is wild. How does that work?
Owens highlights a profound psychological truth. Your partner might not care at all about socks on the floor, but they do care about you.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
If you come at them with criticism, they will treat you like an adversary and defend themselves. But humans are wired to respond to vulnerability.
Right, like if someone is hurting, we want to help.
Exactly. If you come to them exposing a struggle, asking for their help as a teammate, you activate their caretaking instincts instead of their defense mechanisms.
That is a massive paradigm shift. It completely changes the dynamic from you are the problem to we have a problem and I need your strengths to help me solve it.
It really does.
I really want to see how this plays out in practice
Mm.
because Owens actually provides exact scripts for navigating those three underlying emotional realities we talked about earlier, right?
She does, and they are incredibly illuminating to break down.
Let's look at how those same needs sound when they are transformed from an attack into a vulnerable request for help.
Let's start with the first scenario, mismatched habits. The tripwire is the socks, but the real issue is that your nervous systems require different standards of cleanliness.
Right. Instead of screaming in the hallway, Owen suggests saying something like this. Now that we're living together, I'm wondering how we can get used to each other's habits.
Such a great opening.
Yeah. And then you say, I have to admit my blood pressure goes up every time I see dirty socks on the floor, and I know you can't stand how I load the dishwasher. What do you think we can do? How do other people handle this?
Notice exactly what is happening psychologically in that script. First, it immediately acknowledges that this is a shared challenge, getting used to each other's habits.
Right, you're in it together.
Then it introduces mutual vulnerability. You admit your physical reaction, your blood pressure going up, but you instantly balance the scales by owning one of your own habits that annoys them, like loading the dishwasher.
It totally levels the playing field. You aren't standing on a moral high ground declaring them messy and yourself perfect. You are admitting, look, we both have quirks that drive each other crazy.
Exactly.
And I love that it ends with that curious question, how do other people handle this? It turns the conflict into a puzzle that you are sitting on the same side of the table trying to solve together.
It is masterful negotiation. So let's analyze the script for the second scenario. Feeling invisible. This is the issue where you feel your hard work and mental load are being completely disrespected.
Okay, Owen's the script for this one goes like this. When I see your socks on the floor right after I cleaned, I feel like all my efforts are being ignored, even though I know you're just changing your clothes and not trying to send me a subliminal message.
Let's just pause right there.
Okay.
This specific phrasing is a masterclass in giving the benefit of the doubt. You are clearly stating your painful emotional reality. I feel like all my efforts are being ignored. That is real, and it is vulnerable. But you instantly diffuse their need to defend themselves by adding, even though I know you aren't trying to send me a subliminal message.
You are preemptively telling their brain's defense attorney to stand down.
Yeah.
You are saying, I know you don't hate me. I know you aren't doing this maliciously to hurt me.
Yes, which is so important because if someone feels like you are accusing them of malice, they will fight back every single time.
And then the script finishes with, still, could you start putting them in the hamper? It's a little thing that would mean a lot to me.
Exactly. You validate their neutral intentions while still firmly asking for the behavior change. And you reframe using the hamper not as a demanding chore, but as a small, easy favor they can do that proves they care about your feelings.
It's a little thing that would mean a lot to me. That is so hard to say no to. It invites them to be the hero rather than the villain.
It really does. All right, let's look at the last one. Scenario 3, misdirected stress. The socks are just pushing you over the edge because the rest of your life is currently a nightmare.
Ah, yes. The script for dealing with external stress is wonderfully direct. Owen suggests just saying, I'm so stressed at work. I know I'm bringing that stress home, and little things like socks on the floor are driving me up a wall. It would help to take a break. Do you want to go for a walk together?
So honest.
I absolutely love this one because you are just completely owning the irrationality of the moment. You're basically saying, I am running on fumes right now. My anxiety is through the roof, and your socks are just the unfortunate victims of my crumbling
And
sanity.
which is so relatable.
Right. You take total, absolute responsibility for your own emotional state and ending it with an invitation to go for a walk. That is brilliant.
It functions as a physical pattern interrupt. When tensions are high, you are literally suggesting stepping away from the physical environment of the
You
conflict.
leave the hallway.
Yes, you leave the hallway and you physically move your bodies together forward in the same direction.
You are walking side by side instead of standing face to face in a tense standoff.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the true magic of all three of these negotiation scripts is what they accomplish for your relationship long term.
Because it's not just about that one night.
No, not at all. Even if the issue of the socks isn't perfectly permanently resolved in that single chat, because let's be honest, old habits are incredibly stubborn and take time to change, you have still won the interaction.
Because you successfully communicated your internal world instead of just criticizing theirs.
Yes. You proved to your partner that it is entirely possible to talk about difficult, sensitive, annoying things without tearing each other down. You are actively laying down a safe foundation for all future conversation.
Building up that trust.
Exactly. You are building deep trust. You are teaching your partner's nervous system that when you bring up an issue, it is not going to be an assassination of their character.
So, what does this all mean for you listening? If we wrap up all of these incredible insights from Pia Owens' work, it ultimately comes down to a complete reframing of how we view conflict.
A total shift in perspective.
Fights about small things are almost never about the small things. They're usually just poorly disguised, clumsy cries for a much deeper emotional need to be met.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So the next time you feel that sudden surge of rage, do whatever you have to do to take a beat. Look past the fabric on the floor, figure out what that seismic tripwire is actually warning you about.
Find the tectonic plate.
Find the real need, whether that's finding a workable compromise on your different habits, needing to feel seen and valued for your efforts, or just desperately needing some support during a highly stressful time, and ask your partner for help with it instead of attacking them for it.
It is entirely about shifting the dynamic from adversaries fighting over territory to allies solving a problem together.
Exactly. Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with today.
Ugh.
We've spent this whole time talking about how to apply this framework to our most intimate relationships, our partners, our families, the people we live with. But let's push this concept even further. If we can actually train ourselves to pause in the heat of the moment, to identify the real hidden need beneath our frustration, and to translate our anger into a vulnerable request for help, how might that exact same cognitive shift change how we handle the rest of the world?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Think about a frustrating coworker who drops the ball on a major project, or even a stranger on the internet who leaves a maddening, thoughtless comment. Our instinct is always to attack, to win, to prove them wrong.
Always.
But what if we applied the sock protocol? If we stop trying to win the fight and start trying to save the connection, how dramatically does that reshape the reality of our daily lives?